Hi there YouTube, Archos here. This little clip I've been trying to record a zillion times. I tried to script it. It's not me. This is just the video as I shot it with some things taken out, some things put in. Enjoy. It's a long video and I hope you get somewhat of an idea of what this baby can do. Okay, let's go check it out. And welcome to the review of the Archos Gamepad. And this is its box. And let me show you. The Archos Gamepad. Archos is a French-based company that is most known for its budget tablets, Android tablets, and its media players. And it has been making a ton of great media players pre-Android, pre-tablets, portable media players, great screens, nice recording facilities and stuff. I actually have one of these older Archos media players, and it's a really high-end device, and very nice device. And I may actually end up showing that as well, or demonstrating that in another video. But let's continue with the Archos Gamepad. There's a sticker that says 8 GB, and it being a sticker, that might actually indicate that there are bigger capacity Archos Gamepads in the future, maybe. You never know. It has a 7-inch capacitive screen, 1.6 dual-core CPU. It has a quad-core graphics, a Mali GPU. HD progressive 1080 progressive video out through HDMI Mini. It sports Wi-Fi and it runs Android 4.1. They moved from Ice Cream Sandwich, which is 4.0, to this, which is Jelly Bean, very close to launch actually. And I'm not sure if that has been a good idea or not, but we'll see. And the Google Play Store is on here, and it supports all the games that are out there, apart from the ones that are very device specific. But most of the games I actually tried that I have running on my Nexus 7, they actually run on the Archos as well. It comes with a tablet inside, it comes with a legal pack, it comes with a card, and it comes with a manual, and it shows you some of the basic things about the Android operating system and the mapping tool, which actually makes this, the Archos mapping tool, which actually makes this device stand out from the competition. Let's close this, or take this box away. So here we have the Android Gamepad itself. It has a plastic screen, which is kind of a fingerprint magnet, but it's a very smooth screen. It feels very smooth to the touch. It's easily wiped clean with a soft cloth. Yeah, great stuff. And it features a front-facing camera, and it features 7-inch screen, a select button, start button, 2 analog knobs that are very similar to the ones that are found on the PSP and PlayStation Vita. Left and right R2 buttons, which usually are trigger buttons, but yeah, they're positioned over here. Left and right shoulder buttons on top, and action buttons, A, B, X and Y, mostly found on other devices as well. And this is not a thumb pad, sadly. A real thumb pad is something like this, that is just one piece of plastic where you can easily hit the diagonals as well. This closely resembles the thumb pad that is found on the PlayStation and PlayStation Portables. But on the PlayStation, this is one solid piece of plastic, and on this device it isn't. It's just separate buttons, which makes hitting diagonals tough and very hard to do. But we'll see how it functions, and let's turn on the device, like so. It's a very small, very thin device. The top features a couple of ports. It has a mini HDMI, a microphone, a headphone jack, micro USB for charging, power button, volume rocker, and of course triggers. Bottom side there's a microSD slot, and this houses, in my case, a 32 gigabyte microSD. And the back of the unit, it has some legal information, the Archos logo, and very nice, plastic back. But the device is really sturdy. It doesn't even, crack or make any noises if you try to stress it like that. So I did make the mistake of trying to install the software to the SD card. One shouldn't do that with this device because it just slows down, and it's better to have all the system, all the games in the main memory, and to have accessory files on the SD card. Works great with ROM emulation files being stored on the SD card, or movies, or media. It works great that way, but have the programs in the main memory. And I've actually installed quite a bit. As you can see, I've installed all the very well-known emulators out there for Android, which will go on about which I will discuss in detail a bit later on. And this is actually a selection of programs that comes with the device itself. The standard browser, I've installed the Dolphin browser. YouTube, and the standard things that come with Android 4.1. Play Store, button for the Play Store is there, and some Archos specific programs as well. And I've installed these games, and a lot of them actually support the hardware buttons natively, and some they use the Archos mapping tool. And the icon for that mapping tool is actually found here. So the device is really responsive. It stops being really responsive if you move programs to the SD card, so I'd better not. Here you can see everything that's on there. Calendar, Chrome. I've actually installed Chrome as well. Let me see, emails there, a Flash player. Yeah, I actually did manually install Flash, which is very easy to do, but it doesn't come with 4.1. Let me see. Well, basically a very standard Android OS without many fancy features. Actually, it's very similar to the Android that you find on the Nexus 7, and I thought it would actually be nice to compare the two. It's not really how do you say that, fair to compare the two, because this system, the Nexus 7, is actually it has the Tegra 3 chipset, which is quite a bit more powerful than the chipset found on the other one. Yeah, the range of the viewing range on the Nexus is excellent. The viewing range on the Archos is actually quite a bit less. You can see that if you move the device like this. Horizontal viewing range is okay, and going up also. You would almost think that they would have the device, the screen more like this, because it supports an angle like this better than it supports an angle like this. For the most part, if you play it, it's actually directly facing you, and the screen is no problem at all. It has a lower resolution than that of the Nexus, but if you view them, front on, then actually it's quite doable. Perhaps move it. Yeah, it's quite doable. And it's really weird having these devices. This is actually twice as expensive as this, and for 125 euros, which is the cost of my system, well, it's hard to find fault with this device. Or is there? Well, let's go into settings. Wi-Fi, of course. Well, with everything that I've installed, you can actually see that there's 2.5 gigabytes used and 3.7 gigabytes free. And what is on there? Well, MAME for Droid, which has a huge library of games, and all the other emulators have their files stored on the SD menu. There's actually a file manager that is Android specific that I really like. But that won't be. It's not possible to run that on the other device. But that's this one. You have the internal memory, you have the SD card, and you can just well, 15 directories of ROMs, downloads, the flash player that I installed, some emulator files, and BIOS files, of course, and the internal memory. So as you can see, the device is very responsive, and it works great for watching YouTube videos and browsing. And it's a very nice tablet. I mean, it's not the high-end tablet. The screen resolution is 124 by 600, I believe. So slightly less than a full S-video resolution, but it's. Yeah, it's a nice system, and where it excels is actually the games. And for example, Expandable. That's a game that works really nice, really well on this system. Let me see if I can. Yeah, if I can play it like that with the analog knobs, like so. Okay, let's play a new game, normal difficulty. And this is one of the games that actually recognizes the analog pads right away, and you can actually see what is supported. Weapon select, grenade fire, and the analog knobs do movement. So, continue. So, moving the right analog knob is actually firing weapons, and also turning around. You can change weapons if I had multiple weapons with these, and well, they don't function as of yet because it's too early in the game. But as you can see, it runs really well. And if you compare these two analog sticks with the touch controls, now I'm able to change a weapon, or perhaps, yeah. Whoops. Wow. But as you can see, it really plays very fluidly. And for 3D gaming, this is not a bad device. So it runs pretty well, pretty nice. What I could do is actually show you this on the Nexus as well. Let me see. Expandable. Is it there? Shooter? I guess, yeah, expandable. Hi there. So, yeah, a higher resolution screen, and it's a lot weightier. This Nexus 7. Play, new game, normal, continue. And as you can see, movement, weapons fire, it doesn't recognize any gamepad, so you actually have to. I'll turn down the volume a bit. What is instantly noticeable is the fact that the frame rate is a lot smoother on the Nexus if you compare it. It's more solid, but it doesn't say that on the Archos Gamepad the experience is less nice. But of course, this is a beast, a powerhouse of gaming, of course, and well, I don't think the Archos is doing a bad job. So let's go back to the Archos and play some more. Pew Pew. That's a nice dual analog game that really shows how fast the device works when you use the natively supported apps. So you move around with one stick and you shoot with the other stick, and it's a game that is very similar to. I have to pick up the specials. It's a game that is very similar to Geometry Wars, I guess. Pick up the power-ups and you go faster each time. But as you can see, it's a very fast and nice moving game, and it's perfectly playable. I mean, only once in a while there's a slight stutter, but yeah, it's a very nice playable game. So that's quite a recent game that works. Yeah, another big title that works very nicely is Shadowgun. So we have to wait for it to boot. Did I close down the other one? No, just close that and go to Shadowgun, because you know it has the maximum performance if you oh, this actually has 1 gigabyte of RAM, you know, working memory. So we have to wait for it to load. And this is a game that is very similar to that Xbox 360 game, Gears of War. Yeah, I think it's very similar. Play Shadowgun. New game. Yes, I really want to start a new game. I'm gonna do normal mode. And a lot of these games that I tried, actually, the buttons are, you know, supported right out of the box. There is some sort of convention going on. It seems that, you know, a lot of these systems have a similar button layout. Yeah, well, it's like loading from a CD. You have to wait for a bit. It loads stuff in memory, unpacks stuff, I guess to save memory storage of the main memory. And on the Nexus 7, this actually goes a bit faster.
That didn't go well. John, are you there? Yeah, I am.
But as you can see, there's a slight stuttering.
I still cannot initiate scanning sequence. We are being jammed. Which means the good doctor is expecting us. Yes.
But as you can see, all the nice graphics are there. I mean, it's like, you know, it's better than an original Xbox game. But there's a slight stutter. If you play this on the Nexus. Well, you just walk around. There's actually a Nexus Tegra 3 version, a specific version that has actually multiple flags hanging there. There's more textures and more items on screen, being drawn on screen. Let me see, whoops. But as you can see, it runs very nicely. And yeah, being able to control it with real keys, it's very nice. And well, I believe there was this secret over here. As you can see, all the controls are mapped nicely on the device. Look at that. I believe we were supposed to go over here and shoot at some targets. Or perhaps first. Let me see. Take cover. Oh. Well. It's a tutorial, so first I have to take cover. And then I guess I get to shoot these or not. Well, it's just to show you the performance of this device, and it really looks very nice. I'm not sure if it zooms in properly, but yeah, a very nice high resolution screen. And as you can see, a lot of the extra effects, they just work great. And it's a nice you know, it works really well with this game. You have to be a bit patient for loading stuff. Let me see, what else is a cool, yeah, Shine Runner. And yeah, a lot of these games have just, you know, native support. You don't have to configure anything or just select that you opt to use the touch controls or the real controls. And some of them actually sense that you are using oh look, it senses that I'm using the analog controls, and it's just, it runs nice and smooth. And you can see all sorts of reflections on the water. So this is, I mean, you don't need a Tegra 3 chipset to experience some nice 3D gaming, as of yet. And it's very, very responsive, as you can see. I believe one of them, oh yeah, X is restart, respawn. Whoops. That was a copper flying in the air. So yeah, that's Shine Runner, which runs pretty nice. The difference from the Tegra version is actually that on the Tegra version you have all sorts of water splashes on the screen, and yeah, let's close that off. So you can see the system is really responsive when it comes to games like that. Buggy Boy, another, you know, very, I believe by the same company, but also a very recent game that, and here you can see that sometimes it says Gamepad emulation running, so it senses that this game uses analog controls, and actually there's a ton of game profiles that are actually in this system and get constantly updated that make it work with the device. So you don't have to configure anything, it just senses that, you know, it wants to check for a gamepad. So yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. Only loading can be a bit slow sometimes. Let me see if, yeah, there's no recent apps. Yeah, I've not seen this load so slow. Let's try it again. Yeah, you just have to take your time with this tablet, because sometimes a process isn't completely finished, you know, and then it just stalls a bit. So you have to be a bit more patient with this device than with the Nexus. You can just, you know, click everything and it just is very responsive. And this sometimes takes a little bit of time to respond or to adjust. I think these are mapped over here. So sometimes the profiles, they switch around depending on which controls are better to use, and this is just, you know, these buttons, they are not like analog buttons. It's just on or off when you press these. I mean, they still function, but as you can see, it's a very nice game. It doesn't run as smooth as on the Nexus 7. You do get some frame drops, some dropped frames, but whoops. But yeah, it's perfectly playable and it's responsive. So there's no lag. when you use this. There's actually more lag if you use touch controls. So, and we can actually check if there's any mapped buttons on here. No, I guess not. So this is a bit clear. Okay, yeah, because it's not running. Okay. Well, now you see one of the hiccups. Sometimes this mapping tool just doesn't want to work properly. So I just turn it on and show you how it boots. And it has the animation going on. Other devices would have Android or an Android animation, or the Nexus has this X thing that is glowing, you know. There's all sorts of boot screen animations that are used by the various makers. Yeah, I really like the build quality of this system, and the analog knobs, they are a bit stiff, but they do wear in, and I've read online that a lot of people, you know, had some problems with it, with those being too stiff a bit at first, but then if you play a bit, they get more easy to work with, and there's a nice texture on it that grips the you know, your fingerprint very well, so that works pretty good. It does take a little while to boot though, but then when you're there, let's continue. So, Buggy Boy, Shine Runner, Riptide GP, that's also a very nice, quite modern game by the same company, Vector Unit. Tap to start, and erase, and I believe the controls are already mapped on there. It instantly recognizes the controls. Look at these reflections. I mean, so it's just a matter of erasing. And if you're in the air, you can actually do tricks by using the other analog knob. And I believe one of them is, that's for speed. What? Oh, and I did a trick and I fell. Touch to recover. So games like this really work very well. You can actually see that, you know. Whoops! Oh man! There's a very nice high frame rate, and yeah, they are very responsive. And you know, I'm not going to demo the entire game, but yeah, very responsive gameplay, and I mean, recent games, they run pretty well. Cordy is one of the other more recent games out there. Just, you know, to show you what type of games really work well on this device. And yeah, the device really was designed with, you know, playing type games like this. You know, and it really works well. Cordy, very nice looking game. Very nice artwork. And only a couple of quid or a couple of euros, you know, a couple of dollars. It's amazing what you can find on these systems. And I believe this actually works with, with these two buttons, and then you have a jump button, and then you just, you know, and of course you can still use the touch controls. So, but we won't. Let me see. So it works really well. Oops. It's a game with nice physics, and yeah, really plays well. So another game that works really well is, for example, this game, Sonic CD. It also supports the controls, you know, just right out of the box. You don't actually have to configure a thing. So, yeah, a reimagined 16-bit title of the Sega CD, I believe. Start game, Palm Tree Panic. I think that was a... So you just... Let me see what's up. They do move around the buttons sometimes, but yeah, you have that on the consoles as well. And you can actually see that the buttons I press, the corresponding keys on the screen are actually... so this is actually mapped on both the... and perhaps, let me see. No. So you can actually see if a game is natively supported. If the game isn't natively supported, actually you would see representations of these on top of the superimposed on these buttons. But since there's none, it's natively supported. There's no need. It just natively supports the game. What does happen, and I'm not sure why that is, but if you use the analog knobs, there is a stutter and a bit of slowdown in this game. And if you use these, it doesn't happen. So that's, yeah, maybe due to it being you know, an early firmware for this device, or that the game itself isn't really, you know, optimized for this hardware yet. But yeah, great looking game. Another Sonic game, of course, Sonic Episode 1. Continue. On. Turn it on. Wi-Fi. So it's let's go back to the Sonic game, continue. So it's downloading 19 megabytes of data, so you can actually see the speed at which the Wi-Fi is working. I have a good download, I have a good internet connection, so downloading 19 megabytes, 90 megabytes. Isn't that... oh yeah, that's the thing. If you turn on Wi-Fi, you get the email messages and stuff. And you can actually turn notifications off, I believe. Just swipe up and turn off the notifications, like so. So you don't get any interruptions during the gameplay. And perhaps even a little less slowdown, you know, because there's less stuff running in the background. So downloading 90 megabytes of data. It only, you know, happens once if you play it for the first time. And this is also, yeah, well, not as recent as most games, but yeah, a nice title that really shows off the capabilities of this device. So for Android games, and you know, the way the controls work, I think this is a winner, and for only 125 guilders, man, I'm really messed up, euros, or you know, around about that figure, perhaps even less, pounds, and perhaps also a bit more, $150 or something. This device is going to be available in the US, I believe, the early part of next year. You can actually order it online and have it shipped over to the US, but yeah, you can actually pick it up locally. Yeah, early next year, and yeah, and have local support, which is better, I guess, than, you know, support from France. Please tap the screen. We will. Loading game data. I hope. Whoops. New game. I'll perhaps go into options to see if I have to configure anything. Controls. Okay, move and jump. Okay, back. Just new game. And I guess it's mapped quite similar to the other one. Okay, so Splashing Hill Zone 1, Act 1. X. That is interesting. Here you have a mapping thing that just, I mean, if I press it like so, there's no issues with it responding to left and right. But if I move, if I press one of these buttons, and then nothing happens. So, and if I play it like this, so here you have one of the issues that do exist with this device, that the mapping of these two sections, they can interfere with each other because it doesn't want to respond if you walk sideways. So that makes actually the game, using the real buttons, it makes it unplayable. But and there's this mapping thing going on. It's mapped with X. Maybe if I map another. So this actually didn't have native support. So let's see if we can change it around a bit. So let's do the stick. Move the desired analog stick. So that's joy 1. And map the button. Clear. Oh man. Okay. And now you see, sometimes this system just doesn't work properly, and you have these, I mean, these are bugs in the screen and you can't take it away. So what I usually end up doing is rebooting the machine then. And that'll make it go away. Perhaps you can kill the process, I'm not sure. But yeah, you actually saw that there are some issues with the buttons, with these buttons. You know, that the combination of going down and pressing a button doesn't work. So if you press the X or the B or the A and you want to go down after you've moved left or right, it doesn't work. I'll show you that in the emulators. And there's another one that if you are moving this either left or right horizontally, and you press a button, that if you have this pressed, then pressing one of these won't work. So that is a big bug in the control scheme. And it doesn't happen on all the games, because we saw that there were games that didn't have that issue, but it does happen in the Sonic game. And let me see if there's a way to circumvent it. Let me see. Yeah, you have to wait for it to read all the apps that are installed. It's quite a bit slower than the Nexus, even though the raw processor power, the megahertz, this is a 1.6 megahertz CPU, and the CPU on the Nexus is actually 1.2. But I guess comparing megahertz or gigahertz isn't really what it is all about. Let's continue with Sonic Episode 1, because that did have the tools mapped onto it. It didn't have any native support. And let's see if the same thing happens after a reboot as if it's a reproducible thing. Yeah, well, this is very ad hoc. and not very scripted, but yeah, that's just how I work. I don't have the production facilities to do otherwise, so, and nor do I have the time. So new game. Let me see if it works right out of the box. Perhaps I'll show you the mapping tool. Sometimes it crashes when a game is using a lot of resources. I mean, the system doesn't have the time to respond and have both threads running at the same time. So, I mean, using that mapping tool, if the games don't natively support the controls, I mean, it's a nice idea, but it does slow down the system a bit. Yeah, so we have the same. So I guess it's only partially mapped, so let me see what's there. Clear, okay, and have it mapped again. So let's do the button, the A button. As you can see, it's the A button, and then the stick for the analog stick, and you can actually have that bigger a bit or smaller. And play. It doesn't work, does it? Clear, completely clear every. So this works, and now the buttons don't work. And this works. That's weird. Let's see if I can map the controls. Well, there's an option thing going here, but it doesn't seem to be able to map the controls. Return to main menu, yes. So there's native support, I guess. Controls. So here it says how you control the game, but settings. Touch controls. Typical D-pad or swipe. Swipe, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Swipes, this mapping tool, Archos mapping tool, it doesn't support the swipes. It does support the D-pad thingy. So, back. New game. So that's weird. I mean, I just lost my jumping thing. I believe it was X. So there are some games that just won't work properly because, you know, the keys just don't seem to want to cooperate. So X doesn't do anything. None of the buttons, and this. Oh, you can use this, but also this. If you use the touch controls combined with so this is, I believe this is an Android issue. So it works with touch controls, and if you use these controls or these controls, then the jumping isn't. So this makes the game only playable with touch controls. So, and I don't know what is the problem. I mean, in the other game it worked, you know. In this game, QWERTY, it works great. Oh, let me turn down, show down, what is it, shut down Sonic. If you look at QWERTY, it just works great. Okay. So here you move around. You see, and everything works great. But perhaps if you use the X button, it doesn't work. I'm not sure, but Yeah, it depends on which key is mapped probably. But here you can see there's no issues whatsoever. And I wish the games that natively support the controls would actually allow you to map the controls to different buttons, because there will be devices that, you know, will have issues with the X being used. I mean, it shouldn't happen really, because, you know, these would actually mean being able to press all these simultaneously and having the device read all the things you press simultaneously actually should work, because otherwise, you know, there's no point in using this as a gamepad. But yeah, I mean, so Sonic Episode 1 is just, you know, manual controls or touch controls only, I believe. What's another game that is nice to try? Sleepy Jack. Oh, and it just wants to turn around the device, I guess, but I don't. Yeah. So, Sleepy Jack, another quite recent game, I guess. Play. Easy. So, classic. Yeah, classic, because I want to use the touch. So, 1. So, let me see how this works. Hello. Okay. Oh, look, they're mapped over here. So they're mapped on these buttons. Okay. Is there? Yeah, there is. This is actually mapping this. Like so, you can actually see the corresponding buttons. And if they later on introduce more buttons, you can actually, you know, just click this and add. Because there's a part in this game where you actually have to shoot stuff. Ah, the ray gun. Okay, so that's over there. Oh, look, and that's supported as well. I guess there's native support, I'm not sure. Play. So, and as you can see here, pressing a button and moving sideways is no issue whatsoever. The sad thing is that, you know, it's not known in advance which games will actually work and which won't work. And I mean, there's no real standard yet, I guess. Monster Shoot. The thing that the games that actually work best are the games that have dual analog controls. And yeah, it's just a matter of trial and error. And perhaps we should set up a list of games that actually are, you know, working with the Archos and which are not. Perhaps there's a fan site, or there's bound to be a website that, you know, shows a list of games that actually work with this pad, or show you a way how to make a game work with this pad. Monster Shooter. Yeah, just go play, I guess. Survival mode, story mode. And let's go play. Okay, let's skip the cutscenes. Manual aiming, because I want to do it myself. Continue. So here we have a nice looking game, really nice looking game, where you shoot monsters. A very nice isometric perspective. Oops, you have to reload. And you really have to reload quite a bit. But yeah, games like this really work well. Yeah, Cannabelt, you know, the running game, a lot of people. Yeah, a sound over the head jack is really nice, actually. Over the headphones is really nice with this device. So using it as a media player or to watch a movie works great. Yeah, and this just, you know, it's just pressing a button, I guess. As you can see, you know, instead of using a touch control, just using a button works great. So that works as well. Well, there's other games on here that, you know, but you know, oh, Cannibal HD has stopped. Yeah, okay. Emulators. Well, with emulators, you really run into that that issue. At least the emulators that I try over here, and you really run into. You can run into the issue where you know, there's input issues with certain games actually. Game Boy Advance emulator. Let me show you. Let me see what is nice. Yeah, Konami Racers really shows, and I believe this emulator actually has native support. Yeah, there's no keys mapped, so that's really weird. Some of these emulators, if you define the keys, you can actually define the keys. They'll just work. You just, you know, and others made by the same author just won't. Oh, yeah, I'm just trying to touch them. They won't, and you know, I have no idea why is that or how is that. But these racing games, I mean, if you just, you know, use left and right and one of the buttons to fire and brake. So I probably have mapped these, or these are mapped on X and A for A and B. So A probably is, yeah, and you can see that these buttons work great. Yep, I got zapped. Yeah, this is just Mario Kart in a different shell, but yeah, as you can see, it doesn't run really full speed. I mean, there's a bit of dropped frames, I guess, and I've turned off trilinear support because that really slows it down. But yeah, games like this really work well. I mean, let me show you another one. Sonic Advance 2. Yeah, sure. It does support, and this really, Game Boy Advance is, yeah, it really works. Whoops. I'll show you a bit of how fast the stuff moves. There's a bit of stuttering. I mean, if you compare it to the Nexus gameplay, it's actually more smooth. But it's perfectly playable. I mean, there's nothing wrong really with this. And I mean, again, for 125 euros, I mean, who could, you know, who could fail this? Let me see, what else? There's no shooting game, because shooters, they really, you can have an issue with. Namco Museum, sure. Oh yeah, I was playing Pac-Man. Yeah, and this, with native support, it just, you know, it does the analog sticks as it does the analog sticks, and it also does these pads, these sticks. Actually, in the emulator, in the emulators, on some of the cheaper Android gaming pads, these buttons that I'm using right now and the analog knobs are actually the same buttons. So the analog isn't really analog, it's just fake. And on this device, the analog really is are analog sticks, separate analog sticks. And so that works great. Not sure if you, yeah. And here you have actually the issue with the down key not being read if you press one of the fire buttons. I'll show you. So this part is really weird. This just, has no issues with any combinations, but look, if I depress A, I can just move left and right, but down is not possible. If I can only move, and even if I release it, I can only move down after I've moved left or right. So it's like, and now I can't move down, but now I can. So it's reproducible, but it's a weird issue, and that issue doesn't happen if I use the analog stick, but it does happen. Oh, if I have to move left and right first, and then it does happen. So it only happens if you move left or right after you've pressed A, and then you can't go down. But if you press A and you use the analog stick, which is perfectly workable. I mean, it's not as direct, but yeah, there's no issue. So I mean, you can work around these. These issues, these control issues. But I mean, they do stink a bit. Let me see if there's a shooter game. Burai Fighter. This is also, I believe, natively supported. Yep, there's no mapped visible controls, so okay. Okay, so here the X button is used. Let me see if I can use, and here you can see that the down is also happening with the X. If I move left and right, let me see if I can, yeah. If I move left and right and then down, it doesn't want to work. So there is an issue with shooters. If I release it, it works, and if I press it. So there is a key issue with these, and if I use the analog knob, there isn't. And yeah, it really makes me wonder what that is. And what really is funny is actually that I do have another cheap Android system. This one is the Joyit. It's a PC, smart PC stick running Android 4.0, I believe. Let me see. It's running Android 4. This is running Ice Cream Sandwich. Plug in a mouse and a keyboard over USB, or even with a USB hub, and you can run the same emulators. And if you use the cursor keys to move around your spaceship, and use one of the keys on the keyboard to press fire, then you have the same issue. So it may actually be an Android issue and not necessarily an issue with the emulators, or yeah, but perhaps it's possible to circumvent it, because well, the other games I tried, they didn't have the down action button going on, but we did have the Sonic issue, the Sonic Episode 1 issue, where it wasn't going the right way. The Mega Drive emulator. Let's see if I have some recent games. Yeah, Last Metal Fighter. Yeah, so let me see if the maps are there. Oops, if the maps are there. Yeah, here, this is weird, but this emulator, if you map all the controls, it didn't want to respawn. So what I did is actually I dragged all the controls in position. What I did was actually I mapped the directional buttons and the joypad on top of each other, and press play. So for some reason the same procedure with mapping the native keys in this emulator didn't work. So yeah, I also wonder why that is. Perhaps the Brolia, that's the creator of the emulator, perhaps he implemented a different control scheme. So here you can move left and right, up and down, but if you do move diagonally, so and then there's this issue again. You can't go down. So it sometimes works and it sometimes doesn't. And it isn't that the it's a software issue, I guess. And you can use the analog sticks, but if you use the analog stick with the mapping tool, there's going to be a bit of lag, which is a shame. So what the best, and all these emulators, I mean, with shooters, there's an issue. If let me see if I do a recent game, Gunneck, for example, with Gunneck. Continue. Let me see if it is mapped. Yeah, mapped the same way. So play. So perhaps it's the mapping tool, I'm not sure. But also native games that suffer this. But yeah, here I can't go down. So I can move the analog knobs. And with this game, there is a bit of lag, because if you have to interpret a key press, a virtual key press on the screen, and pipe that, have that red. There's actually, in short, there's an extra layer of stuff, of code running to map the keys to the touch controls on the screen. So it does introduce more lag, and as you can see, I mean, it doesn't scroll very smoothly, and it will scroll very smoothly on the Nexus 7. But I mean, it's very workable, and actually the touch controls on the screen are more responsive than if you do it like this. And it's a crying shame that there's no native support in this emulator. But shooters are actually shooters and side-scrolling shooters. Well, in the emulators, it's actually the down button that has the problem, and in most games, you actually hardly ever use the down button, or not in conjunction with one of the fire buttons. So a lot of the games, you don't actually have an issue. But some games they do, and I mean, in shooting games, flying and shooting games, you actually do have that issue. So that's a big no-no for me. That really is a shame. Let me see, Miss Pac-Man. So this is MAME for Droid, and this is this system is actually. It is moving. It is using the gamepad, it seems. So play, but here you can actually see that the buttons are mapped differently. So if I move the analog stick, you actually see the stick moving, and if I use the fire buttons or the directional keys, you actually don't see the stick moving. Insert a coin. Start the game. MAME works great on this system. And here you can have you can see the controls moving alongside and I can continue to play the game. And I'm curious whether or not we have the same not going down issue. Yes, we have the same not going down issue yet again. Not sure if it's the Archos mapping tool, the Archos, or if it's something separate, but and if I don't press a fire button, I can use all the keys. So again, not a big problem for some games, but it could be a huge problem for other games. For example, if we are going to try one of the shooters, let me see, Dangerous Seed. Then you do have a problem. So, insert a coin. And the thing is that stuff doesn't happen, these issues don't happen if you use the touch controls or if you use a separate controller, USB controller. But this device doesn't support USB controllers, I think, or Bluetooth controllers. And it's not like these games aren't playable, because you can always opt, you know, to use the touch controls. But I find, you know, playing a game like this not the best. And you just saw me pressing beside the button, so yeah. Oops, these are all my specials, I believe. Here. So here, moving left and right doesn't even work properly when I fire the button. So here we have this left and right thing. If I do it intermittently, there's this problems reading the. So if I keep pressing it, it moves horizontally more smoothly. But it's perfectly playable if I use the analog controls. And if I just keep pressing it, there's no issues whatsoever. If I intermittently press it, there's more lag. So I mean the key mapping tool really takes quite a bit of processing power, I would say, and perhaps running this on a more powerful device like a Tegra 3 would actually improve the performance or make it more stable, I'm not sure. But as you can see, yeah, playing a shooter like this, I mean, it works great. I mean, there's more lag than on a real controller, so I mean, that's for sure. But I mean, it's perfectly playable. I mean, you don't see me dying here all the time. So yeah, the fact that there's these issues with these older game controllers, older emulators, that's kind of an issue for me, because yeah, I like my shmups, and yeah, if the device isn't able to do that properly, yeah, then there's an issue. Well, I'll finish off with PlayStation emulation and Nintendo 64 emulation. Let's do Nintendo 64 emulation first. Let me see, snowboarding. And this is an emulator that is called Mupen. And I believe, yeah, the controls are mapped on top with the tool. So I press start. And you can see graphical errors. And this emulator, I mean, it's fast, but it does have quite severe graphical errors sometimes. And they are not visible in all, well, in all the games as much, but this game really suffers for it. And perhaps in-game it isn't as bad, but it could be. It's quite interesting, actually, these flickering. Well, it's not my preferred emulator, actually. The one that I like best is N64, what is it? 64 Noid, or OID. The same game, also mapped onto the controllers. A bit differently, I guess. As you can see, play. Small vertical lines in this. Let me see. Yeah, and N64 emulation is in its infancy on Android still. And I'm running it in widescreen. But as you can see, less graphical errors, but there are some issues. Well, a game that works really well actually is, let me see, is, no, not load state. No. Let's exit that completely and go back. Mario Kart or Mario 64? Mario Kart. Let's go check out Mario Kart. So it really looks nice. High resolution graphics, hardware acceleration. Super Mario Kart. Oh, a Grand Prix. Let's go. Thanks, man. So you can see how well it functions. Oh, I'm quite fast. And it works with the analog stick, like the real version. And yeah, from what I see, it runs pretty fast, and there's not too many graphical issues. Oops. Let's. That's one of the fun things, but it's not as smooth as you would like, because you can actually see some of the. Yeah, sometimes you can actually see that the screen and the frame rate drops. Oh, extra present. Whoa. Okay. And finally, PlayStation emulation. First. Okay. Well, it just updated, so not sure how it will respond. Fixed another freeze on some devices. Okay. Well, the good thing about these emulators is that they really are updated quite a bit. So it kept my my settings, I guess. And yeah, as you can see over here, that's the bonus of one of these SD cards. I have a shitload of game cartridges, ISO images on here. Well, a game that is, of course, most interesting to try is perhaps Gran Turismo. Yeah, I've got it running in widescreen on this emulator, and you can have all sorts of settings in here: hardware acceleration, OpenGL, all sorts of weird, intensive stuff. If you want to freak around. And I believe this has native support. There's no mapping, so this actually okay. So this actually supports native mapping of the controls. Oh my god, you guys should probably be deaf now. It's not running full speed, but very close to it. Yeah, what works best is actually use the analog controls. Well, there's a bit laggy, but it's very playable. I mean, so this is, and let's go. Let me see if I can go back. Whoops. Yeah. Whoops. Let's start it up again. Let's go arcade mode. let's try out Gran Turismo 2. And this really works well. I mean, these games, they don't have any, control issues. And I think they are really worth. I mean, the device alone, to be able to play the real Gran Turismo 1 and 2 makes this device a device I would like to have. Because emulation of these games is very, very well done. Except you would have, and that's a setting you'd have to have transparencies on or off or whatever. So, not sure about the. It's not completely full speed. I think it's about 90% or something. Or perhaps it is full speed, I'm not sure. But it's not, a frame rate isn't, it's not buttery smooth. But as you can see, some people actually like. I mean, watching racing videos is actually probably best if you use the outs, the rear view, the chase view. I bought this game. I bought on release day. I bought the American version. I got an American PlayStation just for this, and the American version actually was more bugged than the European version, which I later on got, of course. So different emulator. Restore game, not sure what game I was playing, but of course I was playing. This emulator actually runs a bit faster, and I've set this to 4x3. What? Oh man. So this is actually, it is running full speed. But this has less sensitive analog controls, and this I think this has native game support. Let me see. No, it doesn't. But this is less responsive. Perhaps. If I do this, let me see, drag that a bit bigger, like so, and play. Yeah, it's more responsive, so you actually simulate an analog stick on top of the digital ones. And then it has better analog control. Not really, and it is possible to, it would be great if these, and here you can actually see the slowdown. Converting an analog stick to touch, or touch to an analog stick, it slows down the system. And I reckon on faster systems this wouldn't be a big issue, but I guess a system like this is just a tad too slow if you do it for stuff like emulators. If you use the the simple buttons, the frame rate jumps up. So, final verdict, I guess, for running emulators. If you are mainly going to buy this device for running emulators, I'd say stick to a PlayStation Portable that is hacked, or stick to a Nexus with an external gamepad, because that is running the emulators a lot faster than this game system. If you are into your PlayStation emulator, and you wanna run Outrun, yeah, or Ridge Racer. Those games run really well on this device, but not full speed. I mean, if you want to have the full speed experience again, you're better off with the Nexus because it's more powerful and there's less stuttering. But if money's tight, then this actually may be an option for you. So emulation wise, I'd say fork out a bit more money and get a more powerful system because it's really worth it. Emulation wise, it isn't as bad with, or it isn't as bad. It's not bad at all if you play games. If you play native Android games, because then the mapping tool doesn't slow down the system as much, or not as much, and then the gameplay is more consistent and nice. Load game, new game, normal. So I'll finish off with a bit of. So for Android games, I mean, you can always use the touchscreen, but if you want to go for something extra and have the analog sticks, well, you can see that they really work well. And for some reason, I do have multiple weapons, I guess, but is it possible to switch them around? I'm not sure. Oh well, I have to test it out because, of course, you need to be able to map the controls properly. And so yeah, a bit of a mixed bag if you think about it. I mean, it has great gameplay, dual analog, and also other games. I mean, it controls really well. You saw that. Frame rate is less consistent than that of the Nexus 7 with a Tegra 3 chipset. Oh, for a non-native speaker, 3 and 3 is very hard to distinguish. So I'm not talking branches and leaves, but I'm talking the number. But yeah. I mean, I can't see doing this with the native touch controls actually, like walking around like this. But it would be nice to be able to change the options. I don't want to show touchscreen controls. Use touchscreen controls. Use touchscreen controls. Okay, what I can do is continue. I can try to map it on there. So just one stick over here and just move it around. Then another stick, oops, play. And you can see that this whole system runs into problems quite regularly. So you have this knob that keeps. Anyway. Reboot. That's something that you have to do on a very, very regular basis if you're running these touch controls. So let's have it boot for a bit. and see if I can map it properly. I'll be back shortly. Okay, we're back. So, yeah, Expandable, the game that did seem to function well, but didn't have the proper controls mapped on the other buttons, because probably it just recognizes the two analog sticks, but you can't. I mean, it wouldn't have been that bad if you just, you know, tap over here to change the weapon. But these buttons weren't functioning properly, like so. So weapon select, grenade fire. That's these buttons over here. They don't work. So we need to map those on and see if I can use the mapping tool. So yeah, it's best to pop up the mapping tool if let me see. Pause, options, use touchscreen controls, and go back, continue. So let's see if I'm able to map them properly. Clear, no. Just have one stick over here. Move that around. Resize with the analog stick. Yeah, just do it like so. And press A1 down. Okay, so that's a new thing. Another stick over here. Move, resize it, like so, press A1 down. So that should actually perhaps work. I mean, the controls are a bit swipe-like, so it may not work actually. Change the weapon with the R2 because it's closest to, or reload is that, and this is like so. So this should actually work. Let's play. Okay. So now I don't have grenades yet. Well, I mean, there's no slowdown using this. Weapon out. I have different weapons, I guess. Is it possible to change? Yeah, now it's possible to change. I didn't have that option before. And can I grow? I can throw grenades. So yeah, as you can see, this is an instance where the mapping tool is actually quite necessary, because otherwise you won't be able to run the game properly. Or perhaps do a grenade. So you can, I mean, it's not all bad, the mapping tool, and even if the game natively supports, you know, the hardware tools, it may actually be necessary to go with the touch controls and as you can see, I mean, it doesn't always causes a slowdown, because this really works quite nice. And for some reason it also gave me the option to resize. Whoops. Whoops. Throw a grenade. Whoops. Well, and it is also possible to map similar buttons to the same, to this, oops, weapon out, whoops, different weapon. So yeah, what I was saying is that you can also move more buttons to have the same function. You know, just dragging them just by dragging them on top of each other. But that may actually slow down the system. The more controls are used, touch controls are used, the more slow the whole system becomes, of course, because they have to read all the positions on the screen. So it's a bigger loop, I guess, a bigger code loop. So yeah. Oh man. Final verdict. I'd say for Android games, I'd give this device 8 out of 10. I mean, for current gen games and the configurability, I'd give this device 8 out of 10. Probably. Yeah. For emulation, if you can live with the analog nub, you know, if you can live with the touch, with the button issue with shooters, and you don't play shooters that much, it's actually better, but it doesn't do a full frame rate, so yeah, okay. Okay, my conclusion. So, this device, as a media playing system, it really works well. Let me see if I can have some history. Yeah, I hope Rob doesn't mind me playing his season's greeting video. But as a media player, yeah, Rob, season's greeting to you as well. As a media player, it really, you know, works well. As you can see, I'm just not going to play the sound. As a Android gaming system, you know, some games really work well. Others, you know, they take a little bit of tinkering around with, much like we're used to on the PC side of gaming. So, yeah, I think, you know, if Android is going to go gaming, probably tinkering around with the controls and the apps, actually making sure that they are more configurable when it comes to, you know, the hardware buttons and the touch controls. Yeah, that's the way to go forward, I guess. Things like the, you know, the combination issues, especially with, you know, this part of the controls. I mean, you know, buttons kind of canceling each other out seems to be an Android issue, because a similar thing happens when I use a regular keyboard, a PC USB keyboard, on this device running Android 4.0. If you hook up Bluetooth devices to the Nexus, that doesn't happen. I can show you that in another video. I actually have to review the 8-bitty, which actually, you know, brings a joypad to the Nexus and the Nexus and iOS devices. What was I saying? Oh man, what was I saying? Yeah. So it's kind of a mixed bag. I mean, if you look at it from an iOS perspective, you have to tinker a lot more with the applications to make them work perfectly. But as you can see, I mean, the expandable game that I was, you know, showing you first, and then discovering that I actually couldn't use the special, you know, the grenades and the gun changing options. Then I used a mapping tool to, you know, to actually use the touchscreen controls and map them on the hardware buttons, and actually you saw that worked quite well. Yeah, I mean, it played just as well, just as fine, perhaps a tad slower, not sure, and no, not slower. I mean, it was just as responsive, but the frame rate may actually be, you know, a slightly less, not sure, but perfectly playable, perfectly viewable, you know, very nice. And yeah, I think the future of Android gaming is actually quite similar to the the PC style of gaming, where, you know, people would have 486. Perhaps you could look at this as, you know, a Pentium or a 486 DX100 compared to a Pentium 60. You know, a Pentium has just a tad more fluid frame rate. yeah, and these are actually remarks for that can only be understood for people aged 30 and up, I guess, that actually have used all these old Pentiums. A nice comparison. Well, not sure how to compare it in more modern terms, I guess, but well, Core 2 Duo, yeah, of course, Core 2 Duo and i3 and i5 processors, you know, and graphics cards. Actually, in this type of terms, I mean, the Nexus 7 has a high-end graphics card, high-end processor, and this is a lower-end graphics card and a lower-end processor. So you'll see some dropped frames. But these, I mean, this combination, this CPU and this GPU in this device, is perfectly good for playing current-gen Android games. I mean, you saw the current-gen Android games that I actually play. I mean, Expandable Reloaded is quite a current game. Monster Shot, Zombie, Sleepy Jack. I mean, yeah, these are current games. So quite nice, and they run pretty well. So it really functions well when it comes to. Let's not. I'm just making my closing remarks. Emulation-wise, this system kind of, well, in its current form, is not as good as I would like it to be. But it's hard to judge a system that has just come out with the first version of the firmware, first version of the OS, by that cover, actually. Perhaps we should wait a couple of weeks, a couple of months to see how it performs. But yeah, the people using emulators on this device probably is not the main group of people that this device is actually aimed at. Some of the emulators, they do support the hardware buttons natively, and that works great. Apart from the the down and the fire, and sometimes the left and right and the fire, that these buttons, they just sometimes have issues, or they have issues. You can circumvent that by using the analog nub, and I mean, this combination has no problems whatsoever, but it does slow down the system a bit. I mean, using direct input from the hardware keys, it's a keyboard, is better than using the layer with the touch and then the interpreting. And for some games it really does work well, and for others it just falls flat on its face. Emulation of these emulators isn't full speed all the time. Some work better than others. PlayStation emulator, the FPSE emulator, works well, but it's not as speedy as the EPSX-E emulator. Both have different levels of compatibility, so you'd better have both of these on your system. Same goes for the Nintendo 64 emulation. MuPen 64 has graphical errors, but is quite speedy. Not all games show the graphical errors as severely as I've shown in the demo, the 180 video game. N64 OID, the Noid, that is a faster emulator, It does offer more compatible graphics, less severe graphical errors, and some games really work well on this and others really work well on that. So yeah, it takes a bit of tinkering and takes a bit of fiddling around with it. I like that, and I like optimizing these emulators, and I like to see if Mr. Brolia is actually able to make these work better with this gamepad or this console, or if it's just an Android issue that is just propping up in all these. Curious if the Yinlips or other devices suffer from similar things, if that's the case or not, and would be very interesting to see. I've seen other people commenting on this issue. It's a reproducible issue, and it's not a matter of pressing down, it's not a matter of electronic contacts. I think it's a software issue, because if you, yeah, well, I've shown you before, I'm not going to tell you again. Yeah, Commodore 64 emulation, kind of in its infancy, because the GUIs and the touch controls, they really are meh, not as good as the Brolia emulators, because they have, yeah, they have excellent controls and excellent support. They really are great on the Nexus. I'm going to do a video on the Nexus and show you how great these emulators are on the Nexus 7 actually. They are nice on this one, especially with the analog knob, but they're silky smooth, buttery smooth on the Nexus 7. MAME for Droid, really nice emulator, works well. Again, use the analog knob if you have the issues with certain shooters. It does slow down the response time a bit. Yeah, it's really hard to convey that in a video. You really have to try out the device yourself. Not sure if, I mean, this is the first batch that came out after the initial launch, I believe. I received mine a couple of days ago. Not sure if they are easy to find in the wild. It's coming, a next batch that is being produced is actually will be available online, I believe, the first half of January or February, and yeah, it's coming out early next year in the States, and probably is available in shops as well, or will be available in shops. Yeah, the last thing that really is perhaps a deal breaker for some. This device has a battery life of 2 to 3, maybe 4 hours, depending on what you do. If you play, you know, a CPU-intensive game or an emulator, it sucks the battery dry quite a bit. And if you are using it as a media playback, and if you turn off the Wi-Fi, it's better. Battery life is better, but don't expect more than 3 to 4 hours max, tops. If you are using a graphically, I mean, if you use the PlayStation emulator, it's not going to be more than 2 hours. It does recharge really quickly, and you can. It comes with a charger with an interchangeable plug. I believe Archos was sending out this device with the European style plug even to UK customers, which is kind of a, yeah, an issue, because, you know, the European plug is these two prongs. They use the same plugs in Asia in some places, 240, 220, 230 volts. Yeah, so a different plug is needed. A three-pronged plug and a huge whopping ads plug is needed in the UK. There are adapters for it, but yeah, that's a bit of a letdown for people ordering these devices from the UK. People from the US, if you order one from Europe and you don't want to wait, yeah, you actually need to get yourself another adapter, power adapter, I think. But yeah, for 125 euros, you really can't go wrong with this device, I think. If you don't have any Android device and you are looking for a nice Android experience and you don't want to fork out a lot of money, instead of buying one of these ultra cheap tablets without these controls onto it, you may actually want to go for this system. Yeah, I like the fact that I like the design, and battery life is meh. I mean, if the Nexus 7 would have this SD card option, man, that would be ultra sweet. It doesn't. This version has, but it has issues with putting programs on there. Put your media files, your disk images, your ROM files on there, it's okay. But if you move software, and you can do that with a lot of these Android devices, if you move software like, say, Buggy Boy Blitz, you have the option to move it to SD card. If you do it like that, it's gonna slow down the system enormously. I actually had to do a reinstall of the entire system because it really slowed down tremendously. For some reason, there's a bug in the system, in this system, that really prevents it from doing this. So if you are thinking about installing a shitload of programs and moving them to the SD card and running them from there, well, my version of the yeah, with my card, and I'm actually using a very fast card. I'm using a what is it, a 10 speed Transcend SD card. It may be compatibility issues, perhaps other cards work better, I'm not sure. Look online if there's any issues with, yeah, if there's any people commenting on these issues. But yeah, I just opt to use, to install all the programs in the main memory and this as well, and just, you know, yeah, swap them out. I mean, it's very easy to download them again from the Google store, which is a good thing. Yeah, you can, I mean, Google is very, you know, very nice, because you can actually, actually like Apple, if you log in with your account on this Android device, you can download all these games and install them and have that. If I log into this device with my Android account, I can actually download all the games and play them, which is a very nice thing, I guess. Why pay multiple times if you want to play the same game on a different device? I mean, it's your game, you bought it, you know. So yeah, that's a cool thing. Yeah, comparing it to the Nexus 7 is kind of unfair, because the Nexus 7, I'm using this fancy red yeah, sleeve on it. Comparing to the Nexus 7, I mean, it has a better screen, it has a higher resolution screen, it has a faster processor, graphics. It doesn't have a faster processor, at least. This processor is running at 1.2, this is running at 1.6, but they're different ARM type processors, I believe. So comparing megahertzes isn't really gonna cut it, you know. It's like comparing the megahertzes of a Core 2 Duo with an i3 or something, you know. I mean, it's different. The graphics chips, Tegra 3 and a Mali 400, I believe. So quad-core graphics processor, and you actually see great, stunning graphics on this. I mean, you saw that in the games that I played, the Android games. The Tegra 3 is gonna do some extra stuff, but it's more like, you know, more polygons or more intricate textures, or, you know, more objects that are drawn, tessellation perhaps. Yeah, I mean, the Android gaming experience is pretty much equal on both devices, I'd say. This is buttery smooth. This, well, sometimes you have a dropped frame here and there, but the games do respond just as good on this as on this. The added bonus is the touch controls, and for Android games, they work well. There's an exception or two, I showed that. There may be others, but if the game designers, you know, become more flexible and see that there's more, you know, hardware buttons being used on the Android devices, then they would actually perhaps take that into consideration and, you know, have the games more configurable, and yeah, basically have the same type of thing that PC gamers have been used to all the time, configuring the game, mapping the buttons, you know. Don't have this simple out-of-the-box experience, because, you know, with expandable, you saw that was not going right. These buttons were not supported. I mean, you only discover that when you are further on in the game and you want to, you know, reload or want to change your weapon, and then you just have them. You can use the mapping tool, but it would be nice if you don't, if you hadn't. If you wouldn't have to go through the touchscreen mapping translation thing, but just, you know, be able to have the screens mapped differently. This issue really needs to be resolved, of course. The buttons canceling each other out, that's just a big no-go area for me. That really badly reflects on my final verdict of the device, because I am very keen on my shmups, and for shmups, this device just doesn't cut it, really, because the analog nub is just, you know, it makes it a tad less responsive. So yeah, for Android emulation, I do this. still. But yeah, it's at a price. For Android gaming, well, this is a good one because this doesn't support easy hardware button mapping, hooking up a controller. Only specific controllers can be used. These are built into the OS, so this is, you know, if it's going to be working, it's going to be working. With a hardware update, the Nexus 7 really had issues with my PlayStation 3 controllers. I mean, yeah, this with the PlayStation 3 controller is actually excellent. I will look into it. 4.2.1 didn't want to work with that. This does work together, but yeah, you don't have any analog knobs, so. So yeah, I mean, Android gaming is kind of a mixed experience, and for the price, I'd say go buy one. It's a nice device. For the battery life, I'd say perhaps they should have included a better, longer lasting battery, because 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, it's reminiscent of the PlayStation Portable. My PlayStation Portable, I mean, it had very low battery life, and I actually ended up using it wired in, and perhaps I'll end up using this wired into the mains as well. But that's a design flaw. I think they should have included a higher capacity battery, but that would have driven up the price. So yeah, it cuts both ways, I guess. Yeah, I don't regret buying this at all. I see myself using this for a while next to my Nexus 7 because it has the built-in controls. If I have a nice travel pouch and I have a nice charger that works with it, it charges great with the Nexus 7 charger actually. Yeah, no problems. I probably have this on the go with me. Yeah, this is also a very nice combination. Just have the 8-bitty, and the Nexus 7. For Android gaming, this really is a nice solution. Or have this, come off and slide on. There's a solution coming out, and I'll probably will be looking into the other vendor. I forgot the game. I forgot the name of the vendor, but yeah. Anyways. Not really a simple final verdict. It's not really easy to give a final verdict, and yeah, this is just me, telling you about what I think. I'll probably end up getting rid of this at some point if it doesn't improve. I mean, if they are able to improve the canceling out of this, I could live with the fact that this is not a real thumb pad. The fact that this is not a real thumb pad, the fact that these buttons are cancelling out in emulators, that's a big no-go. Not in all games. Certain games really function well. You can circumvent it with the analog stick, like I told you. It's not an easy thing to either recommend or not recommend people. If you don't have an Android device, yeah, cool. Go get one. If you already have an Android device like me, then the extra buttons, this or this functions better than this in emulators. This really functions well on Android games because this is not really mappable like the mapping tool. Not really natively support. I mean, I've run the same game on the Nexus, the same Android games. It doesn't recognize this as hardware buttons on the games that I tried. So there's no mapping tool. So I mean, in the Play Store actually, on this device, the Archos mapping tool is actually showing up. But if I want to install it, it says no, it's only for Archos. So that's a shame. Yeah, it's a tough decision. It's a tough decision to make. I think a lot of casual gamers are gamers that are really into their analog dual action sticks and don't care about the mapping and don't care about a dropped frame. Yeah, it's a nice tablet. If you are a high-end gamer who wants to have maximum graphics, maximum frame rate, and you can't stand a dropped frame, you just start to vomit or get a seizure, don't get this, because this is a low-end device. It really is a low-end device, and if you are willing to put up with it, it's a great system. So for a budget-oriented person that wants to get the maximum out of a device, this is the way to go. I'd say this is a ROP device, a maximum RD device. I really think it is. It's a Mark Verheer device. It may not be a device for, I'm not sure, Mr. Costardo. I think Mr. Costardo has always bought high-end gaming machines, high-end gaming rigs, wants to squeeze all the maximum frame rate out of every game. It's probably not going to be a device ready for him. So yeah, let me quit and upload this, and you can have this as a Christmas present, and I'll do a video on the 8-bitty, the Nexus 7, and my joystick issues and how I resolve them. The OTG cable for the Nexus, if I hook up a memory card, or what is it, a memory stick, it doesn't want to read it anymore. So there's some issues with this Nexus, and I want to resolve those. So that's all for our next video. Mark signing off, and I'll be back with another video soon. And have a great Christmas. And I'm borrowing Maximum RD's Christmas tree from his and I'm doing this. This is a Retro Gamer VX thing.